In 1999, the British video game development company Creative Assembly released the hybrid real-time turn-based strategy video game Shogun Total War. It was the first Total War title to be released, and the series continues on to this day. The basic premise of the game rests upon the two separate strategic angles of gameplay. The first is the turn-based campaign map, where the player builds cities and recruits armies and agents, then uses those assets to either conquer other territories around the campaign map or diplomatically force others into subjugation. The second part of the game is the real-time strategy part, and this takes place where two armies meet on the field of battle on the campaign map. The player controls groups of troops fighting the opposing army, employing strategies, whether an ambush or just brute force, to win the battle, hopefully with minimal casualties, so the army can march further on in the campaign map. It may sound odd that I'm explaining how this works, but just in case someone who doesn't know what Total War is watches this video for some reason, I want to give a very quick background. The games, as you can probably guess, are usually historically based, incorporating periods and places like the time of the Roman Empire, the Napoleonic Wars, the medieval era, and feudal Japan. However, Creative Assembly have also delved into the fantasy genre, releasing Total War Warhammer and Total War Warhammer 2, which focuses on, you guessed it, the Warhammer fantasy world, with Total War Warhammer 2 being one of their most successful titles. Phew, right, I think that pretty much covers all of it. So we've covered the Total War, now what do I mean by musical theme? Now my knowledge of music is very limited, compared to many I know, so I imagine I will probably get some of the terminology wrong here and there. I believe what I'm going to be talking about can also be referred to as leitmotifs and variation, but I'm not well versed in musical theory, so I'll just leave it at theme for now. Just as a quick kind of CV, as some of you may know from watching the video where I play the piano, and have done most of my life. I've never done it professionally and likely never will do, but I do compose, or rather improvise, the soundtrack to many of my videos, like last week's video on how World War I started, the video on Nero, and the video on the use of plague as a bioweapon, to name a few. Anyway, musical themes. What I mean by that is motifs that are used and recognisably associated with a particular thing. In this case, I'll be mostly referring to the game itself. Musical themes are one of my favourite things in all pieces of media. Whether it be a game, a TV show or a movie, I love it when great themes are utilised. A great champion of musical theme in movies, and a man that many have taken a lot of inspiration from, is the legendary John Williams, whose ability to create incredible themes is shown through how recognisable they are. The Star Wars Force theme is so well recognised that you can make the climax for the music for a Star Wars trailer just from a few notes of it. For a Star Wars fan, even that small part of the theme is so incredibly evocative, and that's the importance of a musical theme. It invokes emotion, or feeling that you hold for a franchise, or group, or character, and I'm glad to see it being used so much more in film and TV. A nice quick example is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While they had themes for their characters in the beginning, they weren't employed across other movies like they should have been. But as we reached the end of the Infinity Saga, especially with Avengers Endgame, characters' themes were being thrown in left, right and centre. It was wonderful. But the music in games hasn't quite caught up yet, in terms of using really recognisable leitmotifs throughout. Don't get me wrong, soundtracks in games can be absolutely beautiful, and there certainly are recognisable themes that you can associate with games. Lots of Nintendo games have recognisable themes like Zelda, Mario, and even the Pokemon Center in Pokemon games. Actually, saying that, Pokemon really does have some nice themes, but that's not what this video is about, so I'll have to move on before I get too bogged down in that. I don't think game music has to have leitmotifs and themes throughout to be good. I still remember when I first heard Jeremy Soul's Far Horizons in Skyrim. I was walking to Whiterun through that narrow winding path from Riverwood, and the view in front of me just suddenly opened up with this beautiful music playing, a mountain to the left, this great walled city to my right, and the incredible rolling expanse of Skyrim out in front of me, dotted with farmhouses, windmills, forts and mountains. I doubt I'll ever forget that memory, and part of the reason why it was so powerful was this beautiful soundtrack behind it, accompanying the game and the views perfectly. Maybe if there was a theme that was forced in there, it would have taken away from the music that was written, forced too much onto the player. The reason I mention that specific occasion is because I want to get across how important music can be in a game, and why it's so important to me. So finally, let's move on to the title of the video, because I want to have a look at how Total War has used leitmotifs, or rather how they're starting to use them more and more, and also disappointingly less in some cases. I haven't played the first two or heard their soundtrack, so I'm going to put them to one side. The soundtrack of Rome Total War at first glance has no recognisable theme that runs throughout. It does have a main theme, however, similar to how Skyrim's main theme is Dragonborn, working on a theme that runs throughout the series but doesn't appear anywhere else in the game, to my knowledge. Anyway, have a quick listen to the main tune that plays in the Rome Total War theme. There is one other time in the soundtrack where this theme comes up, in the credits piece called Forever. Take a listen. So I'd normally just take this as they used the main menu theme as the basis for the credit sing-song, and that's cool, but that's all. Well, recently, for some strange reason, I watched the Rome 2 Total War announcement trailer, and at the end of what was a really great piece of trailer music, I heard this. This trailer was released 8 years after the first Rome Total War, and I was rather a lot younger when I first saw it, so I don't think I made that connection. But if I heard that at the age I am today and recognised it, it would have hyped me up so much for that game. The idea of Rome 2 Total War had so much hype around it because of the love and popularity of the first game, and this tiny part of music that alludes directly back to the first game's main menu theme, just as a solo eerie piano after the trailer, it's brilliant, it's absolutely fantastic, and it's so evocative of all the happy memories that players would have had in the first game. It would have been really cool if this theme had been the centrepiece for the music for the Rome 2 Total War game, but instead we got a completely different soundtrack. The reason for the theme being used in the trailer but not in the game is that Jeff Van Dyke, the composer for the first game, had composed the music for this trailer but did not compose the music for the game. That was left to Dyck and Beddow, who has kind of taken over as the main composer for the Total War series. I do like the Rome 2 Total War soundtrack though, and I think Beddow has proven himself as the composer for the Total War series. I'm going to skip straight to Total War Warhammer for what is my favourite use of theme in any video game. I'm mostly going to be talking about both Warhammer 1 and 2 as the same game, as they were released one after the other and 2 can serve as an expansion to 1. So Warhammer's theme, as far as I know, was first introduced in the main menu for the game. This theme is really strong. It's repeated with variation throughout the main menu music and it's super recognisable. That being said, I didn't really play that much of Warhammer 1, so I didn't consciously notice it, either within the main menu or the various times it was part of the background music in-game, until the trailer for Warhammer 2 came out. Before I saw this trailer, I wouldn't have been able to tell you what the first game's theme sounded like at all, but because of the intensity of that main menu theme, I picked up on it instantly when it played in the trailer. And despite the fact that the trailer was exciting enough in itself, it was that bit of music that got me the most excited. I had no real nostalgia for the first game, and as I said before, I didn't play it an extortionate amount. And yet I got excited for the second game because of the theme from the first game. That's how evocative a theme can be. Now though, I know this theme and notice whenever it's played in game, and it's brilliant. It really binds the whole game together. That being said, I found it difficult to find examples from it from the second game's own soundtrack, but as it uses music from the first game, it's not often noticed. Let me quickly remind you of the main theme. And here's some of the ambient music that plays when you're on the campaign map. And here's some music that plays on the battlefield. Showing it in these quick and set scenarios doesn't really do it justice in how well it binds the game together while you're playing, and sometimes you don't even notice, but it's still having an effect. I haven't really found many examples of this from the second game's own soundtrack, although there are some, and while that has some really good music and different and unique styles for every race you play as, that's not what this video is about, and I would have liked to have seen more of the main theme woven through. I really hope that when Total War Warhammer 3 comes out, presumably within the next year or two, we see this theme appear again both in the trailer and in the game's soundtrack. Right, I think I've got my point across for the Warhammer games, and this script's becoming far longer than it was meant to be, so I'll move on to the most recent standalone game, Total War Three Kingdoms. Right away, in the first trailer, there was a clear theme established in the amazing music that accompanied. The leitmotif opened the trailer, and it closed it as well.
And tyrants rule over the ashes.
The music for the Three Kingdoms trailers is some of the best that Total War, and presumably Beddow, but I'm not sure, have produced. At the end of every single one, whether it be a character-specific trailer or a DLC trailer, the same theme plays, sometimes throughout the trailer and always at the end.
Death would be a mercy.
They do what must be done. And so shall I.
Is he worthy? Yes. Perhaps he is.
I would rather betray the world than have the world betray me.
Great, isn't it? What a fantastic theme. It makes you want to play the game every time I hear it. So why isn't it in the game? The game has a theme, but it pales in comparison to this one. Again, I really like the Three Kingdoms soundtrack, and I don't necessarily want trailer music in-game, because trailers need to tell a narrative, and game music does something completely different. But the theme they consistently use in the trailers is so good, and the one they use in the game, well, I think it doesn't really have anything particularly intense to cement it as a recognisable theme. With the Warhammer games, the tune of the main menu theme was stark against the rest of the music, whereas in Three Kingdoms, it's a lot slower and more muffled, so difficult to even make out a recognisable tune. I still do like that there is a theme in the music and it's played throughout, I just think the theme they use in the trailers is so much better. So what of the future? As I've made very clear, I really like the use of theme throughout these games, and I really hope this carries on in the future. The reason I've made this video is because I haven't found anyone else that talks about this, and yet for me it's so important and something I want to see much more of. The next Total War game will be Total War Saga Troy, and in both the trailers so far I'm pleased to say that there's been a good theme that's been present. So hopefully that plays during the game itself as well. There's one thing I haven't mentioned that I'd like to before I wrap up. The next full historical Total War title is believed by the community to be Total War Medieval 3. This likely won't be out for another couple of years at least, but who knows, maybe it's in development now. The last medieval game, like Rome 1, didn't really have a theme, but it did have this. Like in Rome 1, this was the basis for the credits music.
I know you fight for God, and you believe it's right to risk your home, your life, to face the evil night.
So, if anyone who even knows anyone who works at Creative Assembly, tell them this. Please use that theme. Get Jeff Van Dyke to do the music for Medieval 3 with all the new tools, i.e. an orchestra, at his disposal. I think Richard Beddow is great, and I don't think one's better than the other, but I really want to see what Van Dyke can do today if given the opportunity to do another soundtrack. If I see the Medieval 3 trailer one day with a Medieval 2 melody playing at the end like with the Rome 2 trailer, I will be one very happy guy. Anyway, that's it for this video. A really different one, but like I said, I haven't seen anyone talking about this anywhere else on the internet. And I hope if this is more appreciated, CA will make sure to keep it in future games. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great week. Stay safe.